Before we begin this incredible story of sweet revenge, I need you to do something for me. If you've ever been underestimated because of your age, if you've ever had someone try to take advantage of you or someone you love, hit that like button right now. And if you believe that karma always finds its way back to those who deserve it, subscribe and ring that notification bell. Trust me, by the end of this story, you'll want to share it with everyone you know, especially your grandmother. Let's show the world that wisdom and patience are the ultimate weapons. My name is Mia Catherine Whitmore, and at 86 years old, I thought I'd seen everything life had to offer. I built Whitmore Foundation Services from a single desk in downtown Atlanta's Peachtree Center in 1975 into one of the Southeast's most respected charitable foundation management firms. I'd weathered recessions, market crashes, and more corporate battles than I could count. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what my own grandson would do to me. Marcus Whitmore. My daughter Sarah's boy. The apple of my eye, or so I thought. It started innocently enough in 2004, right after my Harold passed. Marcus was fresh out of Emory with his shiny new finance degree, all smooth talk and designer suits. "Grandma Mia," he'd said, "those green eyes, my late husband's eyes, sparkling with what I mistook for ambition, let me help you manage things. You shouldn't have to worry about money at your age." At your age. Those 3 words should have been my first warning. The Whitmore Foundation, which Harold and I had built together, managed charitable trusts for Atlanta's oldest families. We weren't just handling money, we were preserving legacies. The Carmichael Trust, the Pemberton Estate, the Jackson Family Foundation, combined, we managed over $50 million in charitable assets. But the crown jewel was our family's private foundation, quietly worth $2.2 million, hidden in a maze of trusts and charitable remainder funds that only I fully understood. Marcus started small. First, he became my assistant, helping with client meetings at our office on the 42nd floor of the SunTrust Plaza. Then he convinced me to give him power of attorney just for emergencies. Within 6 months, he'd inserted himself into every aspect of my business and personal finances. The theft began subtly. A few thousand here for investment opportunities. A withdrawal there for tax obligations. He'd bring me papers to sign, always when I was tired, always with that practiced smile. "Don't worry about the details, Grandma. I've got everything under control." By 2010, I started noticing discrepancies. Clients would mention fees I hadn't authorized. Bank statements showed withdrawals I couldn't remember making. When I questioned Marcus, he'd pat my hand condescendingly. "You're getting confused, Grandma. Maybe it's time we talked about retirement." The gaslighting intensified. He'd move my reading glasses and claim I'd lost them. He'd cancel appointments and insist I'd forgotten them. At family dinners, he'd share funny stories about my senior moments that never happened. My own daughter started suggesting assisted living options for my safety. For 21 years, this continued. 21 years of systematic theft, emotional manipulation, and psychological torture. He stole my retirement funds, over $800,000 in total. He embezzled from client accounts using my credentials. He destroyed my reputation, telling anyone who'd listen that poor Grandma Mia was slipping mentally. But what Marcus didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I'd been documenting everything. You see, there's something about being an old Southern woman that makes people underestimate you profoundly. They see the white hair, the reading glasses, the careful way you navigate stairs, and they assume your mind has dulled along with your reflexes. Marcus certainly did. What he didn't know was that Harold and I had created a secondary foundation structure back in 1982, completely separate from our public holdings. The Magnolia Trust, registered in Delaware with assets held in treasury bonds and index funds, had been quietly compounding for over 40 years. Harold had insisted on it. "Mia," he'd said, "always have something they don't know about. Always." The Magnolia Trust was now worth $2.2 million, and I was its sole trustee. While Marcus was busy stealing from the accounts he knew about, I was carefully building my case. Every forged signature, photographed. Every suspicious transaction, documented. Every gaslighting incident, recorded on the small digital recorder I kept in my purse, a hearing aid, I told anyone who asked. I also discovered something interesting about Marcus's side business. Using his position at my firm, he'd been running his own fraudulent investment scheme, targeting elderly clients at Buckhead's exclusive Piedmont Driving Club and the Cherokee Town Club. He promised guaranteed returns on special municipal bonds that didn't exist. His victims included Judge Harrison's widow, the former mayor's mother, and at least 15 other prominent Atlanta seniors. The FBI would later determine he'd stolen over $3.7 million from elderly victims across Georgia, Alabama, and South Carolina. But in 2023, Marcus made his fatal mistake. He decided I needed to be declared incompetent. December 15, 2024. I'll never forget that date. Marcus walked into my Buckhead home with 2 lawyers and a psychiatrist, announcing they were there for a competency evaluation. He'd already filed paperwork with the Fulton County Probate Court, claiming I was suffering from severe dementia and needed immediate guardianship. "It's for your own good, Grandma," he said, not even trying to hide his smirk. "You'll be so much happier at Sunrise Senior Living. They have bingo every Tuesday." The psychiatrist, Dr. Edmund Crane, ran through his tests while Marcus hovered, occasionally interjecting with concerned observations about my declining mental state. What they didn't know was that I'd already been evaluated by 3 independent neurologists at Emory University Hospital, all of whom confirmed I was sharp as ever. Those reports were safely locked in my attorney's office, an attorney Marcus didn't know existed. The breaking point came when Marcus produced a document transferring all authority over the Whitmore Foundation to himself. "Just sign here, Grandma. Then we can get you settled in your new home." I looked at this boy I'd raised, who'd eaten Sunday dinners at my table for 30 years, who'd cried in my arms when his girlfriend broke up with him in high school. And I saw nothing but greed. "Marcus," I said quietly, "do you remember what your grandfather used to say about patience?" He rolled his eyes. "Something about good things coming to those who wait." "Come on, Grandma, we don't have all day." "No," I replied, setting down the pen. "He said patience is a knife that cuts both ways. You wait for the right moment to strike, but while you're waiting, you're also sharpening the blade." That's when I pulled out my phone and made a call. "Mr. Davidson?" "Yes, it's time. They're all here." Within 10 minutes, my home was filled with FBI agents, Georgia Bureau of Investigation officers, and investigators from the state attorney general's office. The look on Marcus's face was priceless, pure, unadulterated shock. Special Agent Rebecca Morrison, who'd been working with me for the past 18 months, placed Marcus under arrest for wire fraud, elder abuse, and running a fraudulent investment scheme. Dr. Crane and the lawyers were detained as co-conspirators. But that was just the appetizer. The next morning, December 16th, I called a meeting at the Whitmore Foundation offices. Every client, every partner, every employee was invited. Marcus was there too, out on bail, still convinced he could talk his way out of this. I stood at the podium, all 4 feet 11 inches of me, and began my presentation. "Ladies and gentlemen, for the past 21 years, my grandson Marcus Whitmore has been systematically stealing from this foundation and from many of you personally." The room erupted. I raised my hand for silence and continued. "I have here documented evidence of 1,247 fraudulent transactions totaling $3.7 million. I have recordings of Marcus admitting to these crimes. I have proof that he's been running a Ponzi scheme targeting elderly investors throughout the Southeast." I clicked to the next slide, showing Marcus's real financial situation, maxed credit cards, gambling debts, a cocaine addiction he'd hidden for years, and payments to 3 different mistresses despite being married with 2 children. "But here's the best part," I said, looking directly at Marcus. "Every single transaction you made, every document you forged, every lie you told, I knew about it. I let you do it. Because while you were stealing hundreds of thousands, you were also building the perfect federal case against yourself. The FBI had been monitoring him for 18 months based on my tips. Every phone call, every email, every meeting, all recorded. All admissible. And Marcus," I added, "remember that confused old lady who couldn't remember where she put her glasses? I've been evaluated by the top neurologists in the country. My cognitive function scores are in the 99th percentile for my age group. Every senior moment you reported was fabricated. We have video evidence from my home security system proving you moved items to confuse me. That's elder abuse, and in Georgia, that carries a mandatory minimum sentence." But I wasn't done. Not even close. That afternoon, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution ran a front-page story, "Prominent Financial Advisor Arrested for Elder Fraud Scheme." The article, which I'd worked on with investigative reporter Jennifer Chen for 6 months, detailed every aspect of Marcus's crimes. By evening, it had been picked up by the Associated Press and was trending on social media with over 27 million views. Marcus's wife, Stephanie, whom I'd always liked, filed for divorce within 48 hours. She'd had no idea about the mistresses or the cocaine. The court immediately froze all of Marcus's assets and granted Stephanie full custody of their children. The state of Georgia revoked Marcus's financial advisor license. The FBI expanded their investigation, finding 12 more victims in Florida. The IRS opened an audit going back 10 years, discovering massive tax fraud. But the coup de grace came at Marcus's preliminary hearing. I took the stand, and the prosecutor asked me about the impact of Marcus's crimes. "Your Honor," I said, "the financial theft was devastating, but it's not about the money. This man destroyed 21 years of my life. He made my own family doubt my mental capacity. He isolated me from friends who believed his lies about my declining mental state. He turned what should have been my golden years into a nightmare of self-doubt and isolation." Then I turned to Marcus. "But you made one crucial mistake. You assumed that because I was old, I was weak. You forgot that I built a multi-million-dollar business from nothing. You forgot that I survived the Depression, World War II, the Civil Rights era, and every challenge life threw at me. You forgot that before I was your grandmother, I was Mia Catherine Whitmore, and I didn't get where I am by being anyone's victim." The judge, the Honorable William Chen, himself a victim of elder abuse by his nephew, set bail at $2 million and declared Marcus a flight risk. The trial began in March 2025. By then, the FBI had identified 93 victims of Marcus's schemes. The total theft amount had risen to $5.2 million. The evidence was overwhelming: 14,000 pages of documents, 300 hours of recorded conversations, and testimony from 47 witnesses. Marcus's defense attorney tried to paint me as a vindictive grandmother with dementia, but the strategy backfired spectacularly. The 3 neurologists testified about my perfect cognitive function. The FBI played recordings of Marcus laughing about how easy it is to fool old people. The jury saw videos of him at casinos in Biloxi, spending victims' money while his confused grandmother was supposedly unable to manage her own affairs. On April 15, 2025, tax day, ironically, the jury returned guilty verdicts on all 37 counts. Wire fraud, mail fraud, elder abuse, money laundering, and running a fraudulent investment scheme. The federal sentencing guidelines recommended 25 to 30 years. But the story doesn't end there. Using the recovered funds and the Magnolia Trust, I established the Whitmore Center for Elder Financial Protection at Georgia State University. We provide free financial literacy courses for seniors, pro bono legal services for elder abuse victims, and training for law enforcement on financial crimes against the elderly. I also started a podcast, Grandma's Got Receipts, where I interview elder abuse survivors and provide advice on protecting yourself from financial predators. We have 2.3 million subscribers and counting. Marcus's victims were made whole through asset forfeiture and insurance claims. Several of them now volunteer at the Whitmore Center, turning their trauma into purpose. Today, September 8, 2025, I'm 87 years old and more alive than I've been in 2 decades. I still run the Whitmore Foundation, but now with a team of ethical, dedicated professionals who've been thoroughly vetted by the FBI. Yes, Special Agent Morrison and I have become friends. She calls me her bonus grandmother. My daughter Sarah has apologized countless times for doubting me, for believing Marcus's lies. We've rebuilt our relationship through family therapy and honest communication. She now serves on the board of the Whitmore Center and has become a fierce advocate for elder rights. Marcus is serving 28 years in federal prison. He won't be eligible for parole until he's 65, ironically, when he'll be approaching elderly status himself. He's written me 17 letters asking for forgiveness, each one returned unopened. Some things are unforgivable. His ex-wife Stephanie and the children visit me every Sunday. We don't talk about Marcus. Instead, I'm teaching his son, Harold III, about ethical business practices and the real meaning of family legacy. His daughter, Lily, wants to be an FBI agent. "I want to catch bad guys who hurt grandmas," she told me last week. The Whitmore Foundation has expanded to manage over $100 million in charitable assets. We're now the leading voice in the Southeast for elder financial protection. I've testified before Congress twice about strengthening elder abuse laws. The Mia Whitmore Act, which makes financial exploitation of seniors over 80 a federal crime with mandatory minimums, is currently in committee. But perhaps the sweetest revenge is this: I'm thriving. At 87, I'm dating Arthur Pemberton, a delightful 83-year-old retired federal judge who appreciates both my business acumen and my story. We go dancing every Friday at the Georgian Terrace, the same place Harold and I had our wedding reception 64 years ago. I've traveled to 16 countries in the past year, speaking at conferences about elder abuse prevention. I've written a book, Never Underestimate Grandma, a guide to protecting your golden years, with all proceeds going to elder abuse victims. Oprah's production company is turning it into a limited series, with Helen Mirren attached to play me. I held out for someone who could capture my southern steel. Last month, I received the FBI Director's Community Leadership Award. Director Christopher Wray himself said, "Mrs. Whitmore represents the best of us, courage, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to justice." But the moment that meant the most came last week. A 78-year-old woman named Dorothy Williams walked into the Whitmore Center. Her nephew had been stealing from her for 3 years, and everyone told her she was too old to fight back. "Mrs. Whitmore," she said, tears in her eyes, "I heard your story on the news. If you could get justice at 86, maybe there's hope for me." We sat down together, and I helped her build her case. The FBI arrested her nephew yesterday. If you're reading this and you're young, remember, the elderly woman you see at the grocery store, moving slowly with her walker, might have been a CEO, a surgeon, a teacher who shaped thousands of lives. Age doesn't diminish accomplishment, it adds to it. If you're reading this and you're older, remember, you are not helpless. Your age is not a weakness, it's a weapon. You have wisdom, patience, and the kind of long-term thinking that the young can't fathom. Use it. And if you're reading this and you're someone who preys on the elderly, remember Marcus Whitmore. Remember that karma has a perfect memory and infinite patience. Remember that somewhere, there's a grandmother documenting every crime, building her case, sharpening her knife. Never, ever underestimate Grandma. Because this grandma? She kept every receipt. As I finish telling you this story, I want you to know that elder financial abuse is real. It affects millions of seniors every year, with losses in the billions. If you suspect someone you love is being financially exploited, don't wait. Contact the National Elder Fraud Hotline at 833-FRAUD-11. And please, share this video with everyone you know, especially your grandparents. Let them know they're not alone, they're not helpless, and they deserve justice. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Comment below if you've ever known someone who underestimated the power of a determined grandmother. And if you're a grandma watching this, we see you, we respect you, and we know you're stronger than anyone gives you credit for. This is Mia's story, but it could be anyone's victory.